not have everything required. This is just my unbound enthusiasm for this movie, which you are going to reveal to me in about 20 seconds that you think it's a 3-star film.
Secret agent man, secret agent man. They've given you a number and taken away your name.
Welcome back to EnterTheRealWorld.com. This is Secret Agent Men, episode 15, Mission Impossible Fallout. My name is Matt Waters. I'm joined on this endeavour, as always, by Ben Phillips. We have both successfully made it out there in these quarantine times and secured a week's worth of shopping, right? How was it in the hellscape that is London?
I was so angry at people. There was a family with a baby in front of us in the queue, and they had 8 bags of, things of toilet paper in front of them. And it was just like, you don't need this much.
You definitively do not.
Just stop. The issue we've got is we could go out there and do a normal shop like it's a normal week and everything would be fine.
Yeah.
The government are not going to stop our ability to go to the shops. They're not going to have the police roaming the streets with guns saying people to go back into their houses, okay? It's not going to be a strictly enforced quarantine.
Yeah, isolation and quarantine, it doesn't mean in a fucking movie where it's hazmat suits everywhere. It just means try as much as you can to keep to yourself, but you can go outside if you need to, like monsters, every one of them. There was definitely a noticeable lack of some things, but we were just about okay. But I saw some of the pictures you sent me of just completely barren shelves and aisles and lockers and everything. It was just crazy times. People are so stupid. Speaking of stupid, Benjamin, for 2 years, you and Mike Thomas have been telling me how good this movie is. It is one of the 3 I was most excited to watch for this podcast. It is now going to be the last episode because they delayed No Time to Die. I am sorry to report, I don't think this is a very good movie.
Oh, it's so good.
I don't hate it, but I will also never watch it again. There are some fun moments and some cool scenes, and maybe I'll pull up a rooftop chase on YouTube, but I think it's meh, and I really don't understand why you think this. I think you are on dust if you think this is better than Skyfall and Casino Royale and The Bourne Ultimatum. But, I'm not even convinced this is the best Mission Impossible film, let alone the best film we've done on this podcast. But you love it so. So
yeah, I do.
Why do you love it so?
Why do I love it? This is everything I want from an action movie. This is
bad writing and lens flare and just goofy see-through stuff.
Sorry,
no, tell me why you love it. Sorry.
No, I think just it's managed to get to the point in the franchise where everything is working like clockwork. The action looks so good. The decision to do everything or as much as they can in camera and make it look great. They've got the cast, they've got the patter, they've got the history, and this movie just starts to pull on all the strings of this franchise. And this and John Wick are the franchises that are doing action correctly in the 21st century. If you're not a Marvel movie,
I mean, John Wick is orders of magnitude superior to this in terms of action, but go off. Also, The Raid, I would say, is doing better than both of those, but
sure, Raid is really
isn't
good.
Really a franchise as much as there were 2 of them, and there probably will never be a third one, but maybe one day. Okay, I dig that McQuarrie is let's pretend all of them actually exist, rather than just being isolated planets or alternate universes of each other. And he's what if Max had a fucking daughter? And what if we referenced him stealing smallpox from the CDC? And was that supposed to be Chimera or the Rabbit's Foot?
Who knows?
But I assume it was one of those. Yeah, I dig that. And that's totally, if someone hit me up and was we'd like you to do a Mission Impossible movie, I'd be right, as many Easter eggs to previous movies as I can possibly do, let's go. So I'm into all of that. I don't think it's noteworthy. I feel bad to do it to you, to come in here with the film you're most excited about and be eh. And I'm trying not to be contrarian about it, but yeah, I'm left with a distinct, is this your king type moment. And I'm sorry. And also it's way too long.
Nah.
2.5 hours, Benjamin.
Yeah, and the last half hour is fucking great.
When there was an hour and a half left, I was how is there an hour and a half left? When there was an hour left, I said, how is there an hour left? And when there was half an hour left, I was how is there half an hour left? left. Like, definitely 2 films worth of stuff happening in one film, in my opinion.
I don't know. It's got a level of like, I feel like there's a movie, there's like a split where it's like, yes, the last kind of half hour of this movie is very similar to something like an Avengers or Last Jedi or something along those like, or even The Dark Knight, where like
we've hit our emotional crescendo, but we've got another half hour to go, type thing.
Yes, but then they also kind of like we've had a confrontation with the big villain, but now there has to be a delay and another confrontation with the final villain before we finish the movie. But the thing is, I love all of those movies.
I just kind of I would say 90 minutes, but it's optimistic to want a 90-minute movie these days. So I'll say every 10 minutes you go over 2 hours, I start deducting points personally. Like, even if I like the film. I really like Skyfall. Skyfall is definitely too long. Like, I love all these Marvel movies. Endgame is fucking way too long. But there's a lot going on in Endgame, and I like what's happening in Endgame more than I like what's happening in Fallout, personally. But
it feels. Are you just annoyed that they kind of hold their cards too close to their chest for a bit too long?
I just don't think it's very good. I don't know. No, I don't know. It's not good. There's plenty of like really good stunt work and like fun moments and stuff like that. I think McQuarrie. I think there's 12 too many things going on in all of these films that he's written. In Rogue Nation and in this one, I had a distinct feeling of like, wait, what the fuck is going on right now? And I get you're operating in the spy sector, so it comes with the territory. But I just think he's trying so hard to do like a twisty-turny, reveal-y type plot that he's like taken it too far. And I kind of wish they would distill this and Rogue Nation down to like some of the simpler elements. Like, you've got enough reveals here. You could have stopped a couple of reveals earlier and it would have worked. And again, I don't hate it. I think Solomon Lane is way better here than he was in Rogue Nation, even though he has less of the focus.
I mean, yeah, like he isn't the villain of this movie. There's a reason he doesn't have another confrontation with Ethan at the end of this movie, and they give it to Ilsa and Benji.
But I think Sean Harris's performance here is much better.
And he's got a great beard.
He does. I think all of that is good, and you know, I'm really happy that Henry Cavill is like blowing up as more than just. I mean, Superman is about the biggest role you could possibly get, so it feels weird to say he's now free of Superman and is getting big roles. But, you know, I'm amped for him, but I think just Mission Impossible and I don't jive, and you and Mission Impossible very much do.
Yeah, I think it's just like, this has always been a franchise. I mean, obviously, I had seen Mission Impossible 1 as a kid, but the main reason I went to go see Mission Impossible 3 was like, oh, J.J. Abrams, the guy who did Lost, is involved in this one. And then I've kind of continued admiration for the franchise, and I love Brad Bird, and I think Rogue Nation is great, but this movie, just, I don't know, I just felt starved for this kind of movie when it came out, and I just think it's ticking all the boxes, and it's an evolution of the franchise, and
I just kind of think all 6 of them are imperfect versions of what they're going for, and it's like, oh, you were doing so well, and then you did this thing. In Ghost Protocol, it's like what happens after Dubai, and Rogue Nation and Fallout, I think there's like a couple too many things going on, or you made it a bit too long, or you got a little bit too clever with it. And Mission Impossible 3, like between when they capture Philip Seymour Hoffman and the final confrontation, like there are definitely some great ideas, and like a highlight reel of the Mission Impossible series is stellar. I just, as a movie, this isn't really working for me in a way. Like, I would watch this and be like, okay, I had a nice time, and then I would never watch it again. Is my takeaway from this. And
I think
that's not necessarily a massive diss. It's just like, I don't find this like exemplary.
No, I think very much is like, I look at the people on like Letterboxd who've rated it, and it's like people with like 5 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and then a couple people are like a 3 and a 7, and it's like, I get it. You some people like really love this, and the people who it doesn't work for, they just kind of go like, why do you love this so much? I don't. It's kind of hard to say. It's just
there
like,
is some kind of just disconnect. I don't know. I don't even know what I would star rate it. Like, I'll think about that afterwards. I didn't want to tip my hand to you beforehand. Like, I've been silent about my thoughts on it until now, but you could probably put together that I didn't love it.
Just one of those things where I came out of the cinema and it felt like something that had been missing from my cinematic diet, and It had ticked all the boxes. It's kind of, to me, the perfect version of like franchise building, where these movies don't feel like they're connected really, but that yet you get to this sixth one and it starts to all coalesce, and it's ticking those boxes in a different way to how like Bourne feels like they ran out of juice. They didn't have any story left.
Yes.
And Bond keeps on tripping up when it tries to introduce these franchise elements and like building on a story and a narrative over years. And then these movies are just kind of like, what if the final 30 minutes of this movie are him reconvening with his wife who hasn't been in the franchise since the third movie?
It is kind of weird that these things they seem to be coming out like sequels to Mission Impossible films. They seem to just be coming out against all odds just every few years, going through developmental hell. And it's like, oh, and they're just quietly piling up. And then suddenly it's like, and now it's like making so much money and it's all becoming really interconnected. And it's like, it quietly became an actual franchise.
Almost by mistake.
Yeah, and like, because the first one is like so iconic, so it's not like it's this niche thing no one's seen or anything. It's just, while no one was looking, they got to 6 and counting Mission Impossible movies.
And then you look at like the casting for 7 and 8 and you're like, oh, it's Pom Clementeith, Nicholas Hoult, Hayley Atwell, Shea Wiggum, big heavy hitters.
So, released July 2018, so 3 years since Rogue Nation, so I think the shortest gap between Mission Impossibles so far.
Yeah, and our first returning director.
Yes, Christopher McQuarrie, who is writing and directing again, first returning director, and he will also be writing and directing Mission Impossibles 7 and 8, which is bananas, quite frankly. 2 hours 27 minutes, so now that No Time to Die is delayed, it is the second longest film we've covered, and it is definitely the longest Mission Impossible film. $178 million budget, so the highest Mission Impossible one to date. $791 million, so the highest grossing Mission Impossible as well.
And finally a Mission Impossible that outgrosses Mission Impossible 2 at the domestic box office.
The monster that was Mission Impossible 2.
That's the thing, is like Mission Impossible 2 made $215 million at the US box office. This movie made 220. It's the first movie in 20 years to, I guess almost 20 years since Mission Impossible 2 came out to actually outgross it. Crazy.
Yeah, so a sequel to Rogue Nation was greenlit before that film even came out. McQuarrie comes back. He agreed on the condition that they change up the visual style, because he said such a big part of this franchise is different directors, different visions. So if I am going to come back, I at least want it to not be painfully obvious that it's me again. Like, I want 6 movies that all look different from each other. And I think that is true. I preferred his visual style for Rogue Nation. I don't like the sort of lens flare everywhere, oversaturated look he's got going on here.
Did you notice the IMAX stuff?
I guess.
It's most apparent in the final act, where like it's swapping between the IMAX shots in the helicopter and everyone on the ground in Kashmir, and like it swaps between letterbox and just huge IMAX stuff.
I did notice that actually. Yeah, there was like a close up of Solomon, and I was like, wait, has this whole movie been letterboxed? Jeremy Renner could not return due to Avengers 3 and 4. They offered to, when they lose the plutonium at the beginning and they grab Luther, that was originally scripted to be, originally it was, we're going to kill Luther, and then Tom Cruise was like, no, I like Luther. And then they were like, well, maybe Benji, and they were like, no, I like Benji. And then they asked Jeremy Renner, would you like to come in and die before the credits? And he was like, no. Because, he couldn't do the whole film, but he could have done a cameo. And he was like, I'm not turning up just to die. So Brandt is still out there, theoretically, but there is no fucking mention of him in this movie. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, it's that weird thing where I remember when people were discussing this, we knew he wasn't coming back for Fallout, and everyone went to go see Infinity War, and Hawkeye hadn't been in any of the trailers. Everyone's just sat there going like, Renner couldn't have spent a couple of weeks doing Fallout.
Yeah, but then he's Ronin, isn't he? So.
Yeah, then he's Ronin in Endgame. He's in Endgame quite a lot.
In Infinity War, though. So. Henry Cavill replaced Tom Cruise in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I guess Tom Cruise had like some kind of lingering involvement in that film, because he then was like, oh, I'd like you to come be in Mission Impossible. Vanessa Kirby got cast due to Tom Cruise liking her in The Crown, much like how Rebecca Ferguson got her role for The White Queen. Tom Cruise just casting everyone. And production was delayed a couple of times. One, because Tom Cruise had some disputes about how much money they should give him, because I think Universal gave him a shit ton of money for The Mummy, and Paramount were like, we'll give you a medium amount of money for Mission Impossible. But they resolved that. But then more famously, he broke his ankle in a take that they left in the movie.
Yep.
And they shut down filming for 7 to 8 weeks, which famously...
No, they shut down production for more than that.
prove it.
We're supposed to shut it down for 7 to 8 weeks.
Oh.
But what I've heard behind the scenes happened is that, obviously, as you were about to say, infamously, Henry Cavill was not allowed to shave his Mission Impossible mustache off, so he had to CGI out in his reshoots for Justice League.
Yes. McQuarrie did agree to let him shave it, and they would CGI his mustache back in, because he was like, it's our fault, he's not available. But then Paramount were like, no, fuck that. We own that mustache. So yes, he has that weird lip in Justice League.
But the issue is he got his reshoots done on Justice League, and then production did not immediately restart on Mission Impossible.
Okay. But they could have been doing some stuff, surely.
He could have been doing stuff. So it's just quite amusing that, like, apparently, like, it was supposed to be he goes straight from Justice League into Mission Impossible, and they just didn't. And production
they
didn't
were
start
Justice
again.
League reshoots as well, weren't they? So
yeah.
In theory, none of this should have been a problem. But broken ankle, reshooting a bad movie to make it slightly less bad. Also, Rebecca Ferguson was pregnant during production, and due to these delays, by the end of filming, she was 7 months, which is probably why it also goes from doing action-y stuff to just sort of walking around some corridors a bit, because 7 months pregnant, which is crazy. And that's all I got. So, our agent is Ethan Hunt, looking pretty haggard now, but, you know, still running. Good lord, is he running. More of the, like, being held back by Luther. He's a loose cannon. He's mythologized. Alec Baldwin talking about him to his face about, you're an incredible man, there's something about the core of your being, and it's like, this has all gotten quite crazy. Because it's just like, there's not much to Ethan as a human being, and yet they've managed, it's similar to Bourne, I guess, where they've managed to take this theoretically blank canvas and turn it into this, like, almost iconic character in cinema. And it's, yeah, and more bickering with a rival agent and all that sort of stuff. He can learn to pilot helicopters on the spot. That's his new power.
Yeah.
Every film, he will demonstrate some crazy ability that we didn't know he had before. He is getting to the realms of just being superhuman. But annoyingly, if we are to believe the various stunt directors on these movies, Tom Cruise is actually quite a lot like that, in that he just learns to do these things. And stop it. Stop making us normies look bad. So our mission, 2 years after the events of Rogue Nation, Ethan learns that the remnants of the Syndicate are now calling themselves the Apostles, and they are seeking to continue Solomon Lane's objectives, and they have stolen some nuclear material, blah blah blah. So, in Belfast, Ethan is briefed about the Apostles. They've been hired by... They're working with, or...
They've been hired by John Lark
to buy plutonium cores, yes. That they will get some disgraced nuclear scientist turn into full bombs. And the Apostles never appear in this movie, Ben.
They kind of do.
I was sort of waiting for a shadowy room of 12 individuals a la Spectre or whatever, and I never got it. And I was like, oh, are we just saying the Syndicate are now called the Apostles, and it's like, they're everyone? Or...
Yeah. No, I think it's just, they are just people. I don't know. I think that's the main confusing part, is by having John Lark and by having the Apostles as two separate organizations.
Yes.
It leads to a hell of a lot of confusion, especially when it turns out that Lane is controlling them from behind the scenes to set up Ethan, so that Ethan's compromised
to get revenge on Ethan, but John Lark doesn't care about Ethan. John Lark wants to actually do things to the world, and I thought Solomon Lane did, and he kind of still does, but... Yeah.
It's that main issue, is that, like, you think that John Lark is a member of the Apostles.
Yes.
But he's not.
He's not. But
he's a separate person.
But he is still apparently somewhat of a disciple of Lane, but then Lane controls the Apostles, so... And then when we started getting into the, like, White Widow stuff, and I was just like, sorry, what the fuck is happening right now? Like...
This is very much a movie where you just let it wash over you and just kind of go like, yeah, it'll explain itself in the end, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess they do, but...
It's just I when watching it, I was sat there going like, oh, Matt's going to have an awful time trying to explain this
I'm
plot.
glad you've known that you know me now. Starting off with the Julia wedding with Sean Harris as the minister. Pretty wild choice with the, like, disintegration effect and the skeleton and everything.
Foreshadowing for our next miniseries.
They originally wanted this to be Alec Baldwin, but he wasn't available, so they got Sean Harris to do it. And I'm like, why the fuck didn't you want it to be Sean Harris in the first place? That's, like, actually thematically, like, relevant and everything.
Yeah, I think my only disappointment with it is that it's Sean Harris with beard.
Which he couldn't possibly know he has. But Ethan is a dreamer, and he's an empath, so more of his abilities are showing themselves. I knew that Michelle Monaghan was in Fallout, so I was like, Oh, okay, it's just a little cameo. So I was actually quite shocked to see her show up again at the end. Well, I mean, when Lark pulls out the picture of her, I was like, oh, she's gonna actually appear, isn't she? But, you know, I spent most of the movie, like, thinking that was it for her.
This would be like at the end of Ghost Protocol when they, like, spy her across the thing.
Yeah.
She is an important person in Ethan's life.
They need blood now to make the little your mission, should you choose to accept it, thing happen. I guess you can't be too careful after IMF got compromised by the Syndicate last time. And it's nice to see that the self-destruct thing actually works this time after some that weren't working as well.
Don't worry, though, if you're worried about this movie having things break on them in the middle of a mission.
That's still happening.
That's still happening.
So, in Berlin, Ethan and Benji attempt to buy the plutonium before the Apostles can, but they are ambushed and it is taken, so they have to trick this scientist into thinking that everything's gone ahead so that he will lead them to John Lark. So, there are several points of the movie where it looks to me like they have been green screened because they look so much more prominent than the background, and this is one of them, this little like tunnel area in Berlin, and it will happen again. And I was just like, maybe they did film it on green screen, maybe it's just the lens choices that are being made, but I really don't like how this film looks in a lot of places, and this is one of the main offenders for me, this little scene here.
I mean, so this is Rob Hardy doing cinematography, who's most famous for being Alex Garland's cinematographer. He did Ex Machina, he did Annihilation, both of which are very good-looking movies.
Yeah, and I think it works when you're trading in that like sci-fi, supernatural space, but I don't know, it looked wrong for the genre, almost, to me. There are a lot of action scenes that look a lot better, but just some of these really bothered me, and I'm sitting there like, are they even there?
I mean, obviously, this is one of those things where, like, nowadays movies are quite often shot. Like when you do reshoots, you probably just like green screen in and you'll get coverage shots so you can superimpose them in later. It does look different because obviously Robert Elswit's done 2 movies in a row, Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol, and so having someone who is more famous for working in more heightened genres, especially when probably this level of action isn't as known to them, it does lend itself some like new challenges. And especially when, like, I mean, if you look at the trailer for Devs, which is airing at the moment, you'll see how heightened the lighting and all the rest of it that you can imagine is going on behind the scenes, whereas this is still quite a muted palette. I do think this movie looks good. I love the way this movie looks. I didn't get any of the kind of like people looking out of place. I don't know.
Maybe I need a bigger television or something to watch it on.
Just buy a huge television.
Yeah, but I don't always watch everything on it.
Okay.
Some of them are watched on the smaller TV bedroom. Bedroom TV, even. TV bedroom. The classic bulletproof vest that can take more than one bullet trope. Not going to hold it against them. So many movies do that. So when they're tricking this scientist, and they're very briefly going with, yeah, the Pope's dead. They nuked Rome and Jerusalem and Mecca. And it's like, oh, so we've blown up the Kremlin, and now we're doing this. But then it becomes painfully obvious and transparent that this is a giant bluff, and they're doing the thing. Like, it gets very melodramatic when he's, like, calling. He's like, yes, sir. He says, we have to read it on the air and everything. It's like, okay. But still, like, I will always get that kick when they, like, drop all the walls and take off the masks and everything. Like, calling back to the first scene in the first movie, it's like, okay, yeah, that's fun. Good spy shit.
My only issue with this scene is it's like, in the briefing, they go, like, this nuclear scientist's gone missing, and they find him very quickly.
Yeah.
For someone who's supposed to be, like, hidden away.
And also, I'm sorry, but you're telling me with all the high-tech shit that Benji and Luther do, they can't crack a phone open. They need him to, like, open it for them with his passcode by this elaborate deception. That just seems...
Maybe he's got one of those things that, like, delete all the contents on it if they like, try and hack into it.
Oh, he's got the woman phone from Sherlock, okay.
Yeah,
okay. Benji finally gets to wear his mask.
He does.
He's Wolf Blitzer, and he will wear another one. And an insanely late title card here, 20 minutes into the movie. I feel they maybe could have done it in 10 instead of 20. But
it's going to drop all these subtle bits. It's just like, the movie's too long.
Every movie is too long. Every movie is too long. Every movie spends 20 minutes telling 10 minutes of story. And just be better at editing. So, IMF Secretary Hunley gets big dogged by Erica Sloan of the CIA, who insists her agent, August Walker, accompany Ethan on orders of the president. And they don't get along very well, and nearly die doing a big skydive. So, Alec Baldwin sounds like David Lynch in Twin Peaks when they're shouting over the plane engine. That was pretty fun. I really like, you work with a scalpel, I prefer a hammer. Henry Cavill is just this big slab of meat, and I do quite like that. It's just like, oh yeah, he's not like fancy or slick, but he will fuck you up, and he's just like here to wreck shit. And like, I liked this dynamic early on. I have my issues with the scene everyone likes that is coming up. I do really like the general like dissing of the IMF. This is Halloween, grown men in masks, and Henry Cavill being like, do people actually fall for this shit when he wears the mask? And he's talking about the mask, and then of course he will fall for a mask later on. I think all of that is pretty fun. Like the continued questioning of the IMF, but now it's not so much like, you know, you guys go too far. Now it's like, what you do is objectively quite silly. And Alec Baldwin will later be like, hey, I can see why you guys like doing this. And it's like, yeah, it is silly, but it's fun. So it's a good thing to pull out, I think.
I think it's one of those things where the moment Henry Cavill comes onto this scene, he looks so impressive.
It's Superman like, shape, baby.
That's the thing, but you look at it and you go like, oh, this is what they saw in him for Superman, because for whatever reason, he doesn't have this kind of energy in any of his performances as Superman, and it's something that, like, I don't know, it's just like, you struggle to see why casting agents saw him as Superman, and then you see him in this movie, and even you see him in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where playing someone a little bit rough around the edges.
He looks bigger and more imposing when he's wearing, like, normal person clothes.
Yeah.
When people are wearing these superhero costumes, it's like, you assume that some of it is padding and, like, sprayed on abs and stuff. And I know he was actually huge, and, like, you see him shirtless in the movie and everything, but he still somehow seems more of a, like, force in this than he does in Man of Steel or Justice League or Batman v Superman.
I mean, obviously, like, you can see what people saw in him, but also when you watch him in some of these movies, and I'm sure if you see him in The Witcher, he's better when he's got an edge to him. Mm-hmm. And it's fast, like, the fact they cast him as the Big Blue Boy Scout kind of doesn't make any sense when you see how good he is in this movie as the villain, or everyone who I know has seen The Witcher says it is good casting. He really doesn't give a fuck.
He's thrown himself into it, and, like, he is very, like, and it's like, complain and kill people.
And obviously, the stunt director who directed the scene that everyone really loves in the first episode of The Witcher is the stunt director on this movie.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, the sword fight is done by the person who does the stunt work for Mission Impossible.
Well, the sword fight's a lot better, so...
Alright.
They do a big fucking halo jump through storm clouds. It made me think of Godzilla when they do that jump through the clouds and then, like, they descend and see the city and everything. I don't know. Images stick in my head that way. Very cool when they cut the sound out when one of them gets hit by lightning. Like, oh, is my TV broken? Oh, no, wait, it's art.
It is art.
It is art. It's good. And, you know, they filmed this 100 times because they insisted on it being dusk, so they had 3 minutes or whatever to work with each day. And crews spent a year training in skydiving and would do, like, 4 jumps a day, and they do these huge stunts, and so many of them are practical. And it's like, say anything you want about the plot and all of this is undeniably impressive. We were watching it and Sass is like, how did they film this? I was like, there's a guy holding a camera jumping out of a plane. How do you think they filmed it? Cruz, for some reason, genuinely wants to die and keeps coming up with ways to almost kill himself. I
think that's the thing, is like they rehearsed this, they built one of the biggest air tunnels to, like, practice doing the stunts in so they could choreograph it properly. For some fucking reason in the movie, they have a camera guy behind the camera guy filming it for a behind the scenes video, which is so nuts that they've put this video online. And you can watch the camera guy filming it, and you're like, right, but the camera guy who's filming the camera guy has to know where they're going to be and also be, like, choreographed in the movie. This scene brings me so much joy because I love to watch this franchise's insistence on making sure that all these action scenes feel real and going the extra mile to make them so spectacular. And obviously, like, there is some CGI implementation in the scene where, like, when they jump through the clouds and the lightning strikes, that's all CGI. But if you watch the behind the scenes clip, you see they descend a certain level of through the cloud and then they're out on the other side and the scene just resumes. Like, there's like a 2-minute break or 2-second break for the CGI, but most of this shoot is one halo jump that Tom Cruise did because he is a crazy man.
Did Henry Cavill do it as well?
That one I'm not too sure on, because obviously he's not in the scene very much and is kind of unconscious for an awful lot of the stunts, so I would not be surprised if Henry Cavill didn't. Tom Cruise definitely did, though.
Oh yeah, and Simon Pegg was like, yeah, I don't really like working with him because you're not sure he's going to be there the next day. This scene makes Walker look like a dipshit, and it's like, okay, that's fine. He's a hammer. He's a big slab of meat. he'll fuck people up when it's fight time, but he's maybe not as smart as Ethan. So I'm like, okay, we'll keep going. But it becomes a bit of a checklist for me of like, oh, he's not that, and he's not that, and he's not that, so what is he?
I think my favourite part of it is obviously, like, he gets knocked unconscious by the lightning, and then obviously wakes up and his thing's being pulled. And whilst obviously Ethan has saved his life on the descent because he's an idiot who's rushed it and jumped into a thundercloud,
Yes.
I do like his, like, oh, you've lost your oxygen tank, because, like, his bluff of just kind of going, like, no, everything was fine on my descent down. Look at this idiot over here who lost his oxygen tank. Like, doesn't want to admit that he was knocked unconscious.
Not sure
and
how
instead,
I got from here to here, but it seems to be fine, so I must have just done it brilliantly.
just like that in the background. The other option is, like, maybe he was conscious the entire time and just wanted Ethan to dick around with him.
So they've done this because there's a big charity event by someone called the White Widow, who is Max from the first movie's daughter, which blew me away. She is an arms dealer fronting as a philanthropist who is going to meet with John Lark and arrange selling him the plutonium. They don't know what John Lark looks like, but everyone going to this event has an electric bracelet ID thing, and they have somehow acquired the signal for John Lark's one, so they're skydiving in. Why are they skydiving in? Why can they
Because they need to be there in a short amount of time. They've got 2 hours to get to the event before
just
she
land
leaves the
the
stage.
fucking plane and drive, you...
No, because they'd have to land somewhere outside of Paris, then they'd have to get inside. They're in Germany. They were in Berlin. They had 2 hours to get from Berlin to Paris. The Halo jump was the only way.
They're on a private plane. I think that's possible anyway. So they have to go in there, scan for John Lark's bracelet, make a mask of him, and then go to the deal as him, is what is going on here. They believe they've found Lark, but Ilsa shows up and kills him, aiming for his chest. Maybe true, who knows? She helps them meet with the widow anyway, and they are offered the plutonium if they help extract Solomon Lane, who is being passed from government to government to interrogate him, essentially. So, the bathroom scene.
It's so fucking good.
It's fun, the whole, like, oh, there's a lot of people here, and, like, circling around trying to find him, and then, like, Ethan goes to grab him, and another dude steps between them, and then, like, when they've got him in the cubicle, and those dudes think that, like, some people are just fucking in one of the cubicles and want to join in, it's France. However, I have seen, across the internet, this moment, this gif.
Where he reloads his fists.
Where he reloads his arms. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I bet he fucks people up. Nope, gets his fucking ass kicked by John Lark. So I'm like...
You've been complaining in every movie up till now that Ethan is too good at fighting.
Yes.
You do not get to throw it back at them when they finally have someone who's better at fighting than them.
No, I don't mind if this dude fucks Ethan up. But, like, right, so you've got Big Walker here, and we don't know he's the villain yet, although somewhat transparent. He's clearly a bit dumb. So I'm like, okay, he must just be a big fucking fighter. I'm like, oh, he's cocking his fist and he's getting up and he looks pissed. He is going to wreck him. And he doesn't. So it's like, so what is he good at then?
I think the entire thing is, like, he is a hammer, which means he comes in with, like, he can punch good, but his aim is to punch you in the face, like, 3 times and knock you out cold. Whereas the guy who they've hired to play Lark is someone who is, like, more precision and will, like, kick you and, like, keep you away and keep you distant.
Yes.
And
Emily Blunt's stunt double on Edge of Tomorrow. Somehow.
Wait, what?
I know, I guess they wear power armor, don't they? So maybe in a couple of those scenes, he is a slight man, I don't know.
He's good.
Yeah, he's good.
Takes a briefcase to the face really well.
That was a cool moment. I was like, oh, that's fun. Like, Ethan's trying to, like, syringe him and he just fucking batters him with this case, and then he's broken the computer they need to make the mask.
I also think it's, like, an unwritten thing here should be assuming that Walker is not doing 100% of what he needs to do to, like, play along. Because he does break the laptop.
That's true.
He does all these things that, like, would vaguely compromise the mission.
Yes. Did Ilsa deliberately kill him? Because she says I was aiming for his chest, and it's like, I'm sorry, but most of what we've seen so far is you're another Ethan, you're hyper-capable, you don't...
To be fair, she does miss Lane several times when she's shooting at the car later on in the movie.
Did she miss, or is it, like...
She got his ear.
Very bulletproof. Okay, I guess. Because she's very, like, I can't tell you why I'm here, I can't tell you what I'm doing. But then later on, doesn't she reveal she's trying to protect Lark, not kill him?
She wants to get to the point where, like, they free Lane so she can kill Lane.
She wants to kill Lane, yeah. So she's trying to protect Lark, but she started off by ostensibly killing him.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Ilsa... Add Ilsa to the list of gadgets that aren't working, I guess. But cool to see her back. She's wearing a suit. That's very nice. Into that. White Widow is Max's daughter. And I like that we made this big deal about Max in our first episode, like, who the fuck is Max? What is Max's deal? And you were sitting there knowing that Max will in some way, shape or form come back. I had to actually break radio silence with you and be like, is the Max they're talking about the Max? And you were like, yup.
And Vanessa Kirby's back for Mission Impossible 7.
I was going to say, like, it seems to be set up at the end that she is still going to be in play, and we obviously are going to have the original IMF secretary coming back, so maybe there'll be more reference to Max. I don't know. We might find out who she actually fucking is. But yeah, that's fun. Vanessa Kirby's great in this film, I think.
Yeah.
A really, like, hypnotic villain type performance. And it's like, this charity event, I don't know if everyone in the room knows she's an arms dealer, but it's like, if someone was giving a public speech to me and they gave it like this, I'd be like, is she gonna kill us all? Because she's so, like, evil.
Yeah,
she's great, but it's like, oh.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, your complaint with Rogue Nation, or one of your complaints with Rogue Nation, was like watching it and kind of going like, oh, by having one hyper competent woman, they've kind of lost the room.
Yes.
For other hyper-competent women.
Yes, I agree with your assessment that I think this may be the single best movie for female agency, even if overall the franchise, we agreed it might actually be Bourne somehow, some way. But yeah, this movie really handles it. Like, they've brought Rebecca Ferguson back. You've got this White Widow character who's really cool. Angela Bassett, limited role, but really cool. And I still wish he'd managed to bring back Maggie Q and Paula Patton,
I think that's the big white whale of the franchise. Is like some of these Paula Patton, Maggie Q, these characters who kind of got dumped after one movie appearances that you kind of wish they did more with, but you can also understand why they're not McQuarrie's babies in the same way that, like...
He did make them the offers for Rogue Nation, and they just couldn't make it.
They could have quite easily had them on the team as well.
Or one of them, maybe. There are a lot of women listed under the cast for the next two movies as well, like Pom Clementif and various other people, and I think all the women in this one are... Rebecca Ferguson's returning, and Vanessa Kirby's returning. So, good stuff. And yeah, I'm not going to have, I don't think, anything bad to say in the female agency category this week. So that might actually be a first.
15 movies, we made it.
I know.
We did it.
I'll think of something, don't worry. And they just really, really murder a bunch of people in public in front of a lot of witnesses, don't they?
They do.
And then when they take Ethan and Walker back to their little, like, stately home to, like, plan the heist for the next day, and you see it playing out over this, like, hyper stylized music and everything. It's a really cool, like, visual of, like, Ethan is one of the people doing the raid and they have to kill all these policemen and, like, he really doesn't want to do it. And then you're like, oh no, this is hypothetical. And for a minute I was like, oh, this is how it's actually playing out. That's kind of cool. And then it snaps back and it's like, oh, not that you don't get two cool scenes out of it, but, Yeah, and he finds out that... Because all he knows is White Widow is arranging a swap, plutonium for something, and then he finds out the something is Solomon Lane. And it's like, oh, shit. I've just been having dreams about this man. I am a magician. Walker manages to meet with Sloane between scenes and shares his theory that Ethan is John Lark, which the second he said that, I was like, well, you're fucking John Lark then, aren't you? Because
he then gives Erica his, like, the phone that they got off the body of John Lark, and it's completely fixed.
Yeah, and the one that Ethan pulled out of his pocket was smashed as well. Yes, I did notice that. But also, they say, it seems like John Lark is an American, or like, we have reason to believe John Lark is American. I'm like, well, it's obviously not Ethan, so it's you, isn't it? Because that's how films work. You only have, like, a certain number of characters, so one of them has to be prominent. But, still good stuff. Him, like, asserting that Ilsa killed the double to make it look good in front of him as a witness, and referencing how many times Ethan's been fucked over by the government and stuff. And we will keep doing this storyline of Ethan's gone rogue. I think literally all of them except 2.
Yeah.
2 is the only one he just straight up works for IMF and nothing's going...
I like all the little meta commentary.
Oh, yeah, I do as well, definitely. I think that's one of the best things McQuarrie has brought is continuity. And it doesn't have to be... Well, this is probably the most continuity-heavy one, like, as in, you could watch all the other ones without having seen any of the others. And you'd get it all.
This is the first, like, direct sequel.
Yeah, I think you would struggle if you hadn't seen Rogue Nation if you watched Fallout, because who is Ilsa, and what is this, and what is that, and who's Solomon Lane?
Yeah, you wouldn't struggle necessarily without having seen Mission Impossible 3, but yeah, I think Rogue Nation kind of is required for this one.
So the extraction goes ahead, the IMF get Lane, Ilsa tries to kill him, a lot is going on, there's a big chase.
Good chase.
A good chase, yes. Walker guesses that Ethan caught got Lane, and thus this plan is doomed. He's like, holy shit, you're the one that got him, aren't you? It's like, yeah, he's definitely not going to keep that to himself when he sees you, is he? So they have to, like, pull off a heist within the heist, and also it will stop White Widow's brother and his people just murdering a bunch of policemen, so there's that as well. They wedge this truck into an alley that is like too narrow to get through, and then go through the window onto these bikes. It's just really fun. Like, just, I don't know, something satisfying about this thing getting stuck, and then it acts as a roadblock as well. And
there's so much cool stuff leading up to the scene. Like, what's the thing that they're going to get the police convoy to go down to the path they want it to go down on? It's like, oh, we'll just have a guy turn the wheel really fast and like tip up a 16-wheel truck in the middle of the road.
Yep.
which the police will see happening. They won't come across this truck in the middle of the road. They will literally watch this truck flip and turn over.
And then, like, ramming the truck into the water, which rolls, and then Sean Harris had to actually hold his breath a bit. The bike chase, I'm kind of 50-50 on it, because in some ways I think it looks really fake, but then they convey this really impressive sense of speed, like, genuinely. Like, oh, fuck, he's going so fast. And we've got more of the, like, camera narrowly, like, attached to the side, sort of semi-point of view type stuff returning from Rogue Nation, which I really liked there. Just some of, like, when he's weaving through traffic. I'm not asking Tom Cruise to actually drive headlong at real traffic. Like, that's a bit much, but some of this looked a bit. They've CGI'd some cars in for. I think
that's what they did. Is that they had Tom Cruise drive this at full speed, and then they would put the cars in later.
Yeah, it's exhilarating overall. So I'm being a bit nitpicky, but just a lot of times throughout this movie, it struck me that it's a little bit more CGI-y and green screeny than they've been before. And that did somewhat bother me. But yeah, an insane sense of speed. Like, it seems like he's going 200 miles an hour and is about to break the sound barrier. He's going so fast. Weaving in and out and swerving around and, like, flying off the bike, and then it seems like they've got him, but he goes down through a little... Is it like a drainage pipe, or like the fountain has been...
It's just down into, like, the river underneath. And he cuts it and falls down there, where Benji and Luther are sat there in the boat with Lane.
Then briefly getting past the police, like, hello, we're just tourists, and then they have to turn around and go get Ethan as well.
I love the shot, and obviously it's in all the trailers, but the shot of Lane in the car as it gets sinking into the water, and him kind of, like, taking those 3 breaths while this vertical wall of water descends on him. It's so good.
Yeah, they had to roll a truck in, like, a wet thing, and yeah. And it seemed like the plan here was, like, this was all deliberate, and it's to make sure they can get some time away from Walker, but then Walker is there when they all rendezvous up. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess it just genuinely went a bit wrong then. But that's fine, because they always have extra steps plotted in. We get this random female police officer who stumbles across them, and White Widow's crew show up and shoot her, and then Ethan, as Hunley says to him earlier on, like, you can't weigh one person's life against thousands or millions or whatever. Like, it is impossible for you to let one person die for the greater good. So, like, he fucks himself over by murdering... Does he kill her brother, or is it just his men?
He just kills her men, because her brother's there later on.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Oh, yeah, because they're like, yeah, Zola wants a word with you. It's a very tense moment, and it's like, this is who Ethan is in a nutshell. Walker would be like, oh, just let her die. Yeah, it's the M mentality. It's like what Angela Bassett is saying earlier on. It's like, you know, you've got to do this kind of thing for the greater good and everything, but Ethan can't. He has to have it both ways. Like, he has to save everybody. And that's good stuff. Pretty clear this sniper is Ilsa before they reveal it's her, but still very cool. More of the, like, again, the sense of speed as they're chasing her down, more of the tight angles again, like, all really good stuff. Like, I don't know how McQuarrie makes these chases feel faster than most car chases feel, but he sure does, and it's really cool. And, like, you know, Rebecca Ferguson, like, seeing her do all of this, knowing the kind of roles she normally takes, it's like, this must have been really fun for her. She's wearing, like, the big yellow dress, and now she's a sniper, now she's a biker, now she's doing this, now she's wearing a suit, and, like, yeah, it must have been really fun for her. And, like, it's a cool character that she's, like, slightly distant, always watching type presence in Ethan's life, who just shows up and wrecks things for him and steals his heart.
She's just really good.
Yeah, she is. Again. Solomon has this little monologue about how terrorists are schoolboys, and he doesn't care what people think or feel. He just cares about, like, the state of the world. And it's like, this is way better than any equivalent monologue he gave in Rogue Nation. Now I'm like, oh, this dude's a great villain. I'm all in now. He's like this weird Cossack monk man who is, like, I kill everyone just because, resigning himself to his end and everything. Like, yeah, he seemed like a sort of, I don't know, he was a little bit lacking for me last time, and now I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. Like, this is a good little speech he's given. Yeah, and then they
the beard.
Yeah, the beard is most of it, and then the little outfit he wears. So the White Widow tells them, go to London with Lane. I also want Ilsa now, and then we'll do the trade for the plutonium. Secretary Hunley shows up, reveals White Widow informs the CIA for immunity. They think Ethan is Lark. He terminates the mission, and it seems like Ethan goes rogue, but it's all revealed to be a deception to trick Walker, who is, of course, John Lark. Before this, Ilsa follows Ethan around Paris a bit. It is Paris, right? Before, yeah. And the big row of trees. I feel I should know where this is, but I don't.
Isn't it where they do the scene in Inception?
Oh, potentially, yeah. But it's very striking, like, seeing Tom Cruise in the distance and in these avenues of trees, and then they walk in parallel, and yeah, it's just very pretty and everything. She's been ordered to kill Lane to stop British secrets getting out, because Britain are the worst, obviously. We can't let people know what we do with MI6 and James Bond.
That's the thing, is it is all tie into James Bond at this point.
Of course it is. 100%. There's another Julia dream. They are mounting. Hunley being so pissed off about all of this, and like, I don't know, it's a fun little, I like this. Hunley shows up to like roast them, and then this entire little exchange, and like Benji briefly being like, why do I have to do it? And then Luther's like,
I'm the only one, you're the only one who can do it.
Yeah. The comment about Ethan stealing smallpox from the CDC, again, that's either Chimera or it's the rabbit's foot. It's got to be one of those. Ethan
either that, or it's just like they're implying that he stole it, like off screen or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I guess. But it'd be fun if it is a tie-in.
The rabbit's foot was clearly some kind of biological thing.
It clearly was.
Yeah. Ethan continues.
They can't have him say the rabbit's foot though in this movie. Everyone will be like, "What the fuck's the rabbit's foot?"
You'll find out.
And there's like one person in the audience going like, "Yeah, rabbit's foot."
It's us doing this podcast. Ethan continues to look fucking crazy when it comes to Lane, because he's like, "That's exactly what he would want to happen. You don't know how he thinks. Only I know how he thinks." And like, obviously this is all for show to make Walker believe it. But like, you know, while I'm watching it in real time, I'm like, dude, you are doing a bad job of shaking off these allegations that you're like in too deep on this stuff. And then, yeah, I love that Walker, he thinks to take the little camera off the wall, but then he doesn't take into account the giant fucking computer behind him. You know, it's fun, him like dropping the first F-bomb in Mission Impossible. Why'd you have to make this so fucking complicated? All of that, that's all good stuff.
Complaining about the plot of this movie, and it's all because, like, again, the plot of this movie would be fairly easy, because it'd be just like the Apostles sell Lark a plutonium bomb, and he goes and detonates them and irradiates a third of the world's water supply. Bing bang bosh, done, simple. But instead, all the elements that are Lane trying to tag Ethan with this,
yes,
make it so much more complicated than it needs to be. Obviously, step one of making this movie less complicated, have Lark and the Apostles be the same group. Is step one of how to make this movie more simple. Yes. But the meta commentary of him going, my God, everything we are doing with Hunt here is pointless.
Yeah. I will say, though, that, like, because Ethan has been established to be so weird, and he knows so many things, and he's done so many deep undercovers and lived so many alternate lives, that it is plausible, if it weren't so obvious that it is Walker, that Ethan could be this, like, notorious person that no one knows who it is. Like, forget John Lark. At any point in this franchise, if they raise some person that's like, oh, no one knows what they look like, but they're this notable whoever, it's like, it could very well be Ethan.
I think that is one of the most interesting things about the character, is like, he is such an enigma, and we know so little about his life that they could quite easily go like, yeah, he's evil now. And it's why I think Lane works, and it's why I think Walker work as villains. It's because they are fundamentally like much like Ethan in terms of like kind of hyper competent people who have become disillusioned.
Yeah, this is definitely a point where I ask myself, how is there an hour left in the movie? Sloane reneges on the deal with Hunley. She's listening in, and she's like, Walker, fuck you. She sends in her men to retrieve all of them, and she's like, yeah, I will have Lane, I will have plutonium, I want Walker, I want all of this. But then most of them, in fact, work for the Apostles, so Walker is able to turn them. Walker kills Hunley, gets away. Ethan does his best to chase him down, but he does get away. Luther tags Walker so that they can do this fun running scene where, like, Benji is looking at a top-down view that he has the wrong way up, and he has it in 2D mode, so he can't tell that Ethan is like 2 stories up from Walker. So when he's like, why are you stopping? He's like, I'm about to jump out of a window. He's like, why? He's like, oh shit, sorry man. And he's like, turn left. He's like, left? I'm like in a building, there's only forward. That's all fun stuff. I can't believe Tom Cruise is 56 at this point. Just sprinting constantly. Like, we talk about Tom Cruise running in all his movies. I feel this is like a step beyond, because he's just going from sprinting scene to sprinting scene to sprinting scene. These long takes as well, where it's very clearly actually him. And I mean, I'm not saying they would get a body double to run for him, but I mean, I feel you would achieve this in a lot of movies by doing like a lot of cuts and extreme close-ups so that they don't have to run as much as they seem like they are. And even when he meets Julia at the end, and he's like, sorry, I've got to go, and then he sprints off around the corner. It's just like, did McQuarrie just go like, yeah, all right, run? But yeah, I love that they left it in, the take where he broke his ankle, where he jumps between the 2 buildings and he shorts it a little bit, and then he gets back up and he tries to run and he's hobbling, and it's like, this is real. He broke his ankle and was trying to run. And it's so intense, and it's like wild they left that in. And
this entire sequence in this movie is filmed right by my office.
Oh, okay.
Like, the entire thing. From the moment they pull up in London and go into the little underground bit where they have all the confrontation underground, that is where my partner and I used to get lunch at work.
Oh, really?
Like, if it was raining, we would go into the alcove and eat lunch in there. If it wasn't raining, we would sit on the sets of St. Paul's, which they run up on the way into the cathedral.
Oh, yeah, he runs through this like funeral, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He runs through a funeral. He then jumps all over the buildings. The walkway that Walker walks on to go across Blackfriars Bridge is right by my office. The building that he breaks his ankles on is the office in which I work.
I thought it was like a BT building. Isn't one of these like an old?
It is the BT building. It is where the office is that
okay.
I work in.
If anyone wants to murder Ben, you now have the capacity to do it.
Yes, 5 days a week.
Yeah. He's safe for 2 of them.
And then it's originally, and this is from people in the office. Apparently, they wanted to film the scene where he throws the chair through the window in our office itself.
Wow!
But obviously, they would have to remove a lot of branding that would have made them like to do that. And so instead, they did it. I think it was on one of the upper floors that was like more agreeable or whatever. Yeah. So this movie very much like I can look out my window and I have the exact view of like Tom Cruise running that he had, and it's incredibly surreal to watch this movie, and a hell of a lot of movies that came out in like a 12-month window filmed in this particular area of London.
Why?
No idea. Men in Black International, Paddington 2, Fantastic Beasts 2, Mission Impossible Fallout, and like my partner and I would just go to the cinema and just go like, oh look, they filmed that at work. Oh look, they filmed that at work. Oh look, they filmed that at work.
That's so strange. That's why you like this movie so much. It's a personal bias.
This is where I think the movie kind of tips from being like really good and similar to Rogue Nation to being kind of what I want from these kind of movies, where Walker won't shoot him because he knows that Lane's got more stuff for him to do. He shows him the picture of Julia, and then the movie just kind of like, I just think it goes up another level. I love the entirety of this last sequence. There's so much at stake, and like it's one of those things where it doesn't feel like artificial stakes. Like there's a dourness to everything that goes on over these next few scenes, because not only is it a suicide mission, which they're all very much aware of, like we are going to try and defuse a nuclear bomb or 2 nuclear bombs that are apparently impossible, but then the slow dawning that like the reason there's a medical camp where they're going to is because Julia is there. They've contrived it to have it happen there, and I mean, the movie does the cheap trick. Obviously, they've killed Alec Baldwin. And it's very much similar to the trick that Joss Whedon pulls in Serenity, where let's kill a character off to make you feel like this movie's got stakes.
But no one too important.
No one too important. Like we'll kill the 7th person down on the car sheet. It's not going to be one of the main people, but enough to make you feel like, oh no, we're playing for keeps here. By killing off one of the recurring characters, even though Alec Baldwin's only been in one movie.
Well, I just did kill Wash, and that hurt.
He literally says in the commentary, like, the reason they killed Wash is because it's like...
Who's the biggest non-consequential character we could kill?
And to make you feel like this entire last sequence in which we're going to try and kill off everyone feels like there are stakes.
Yeah, like you can't kill Mal, you can't kill River, you can't kill Zoe, but you can kill Wash.
Do you want to plug...
No, it's a less good podcast. Alright, fine. Go listen to Firefly Now and Serenity later on IntoTheRealWorld.com, where we talk about Firefly and Serenity. So, yes, they track Lane to Kashmir, where Julia and her husband are working at this relief camp, and like if they set the nukes off here, it will like irradiate the water that feeds like a third of the world or whatever, and it will just fuck up like a third of the world's population essentially. And like, yes, they have contrived it so Julia and her husband like got a call out of nowhere to arrange for them to come here and everything, and it's to put pressure on Ethan basically. Luther gives a little speech to Ilsa about Ethan cares about two people. One of them was his wife. She's like, oh, he's married? Oh, not that I care, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he gives this little speech about, like, what happened with Julia and the reason he faked Julia's death and everything, and how every time something bad happened, he was like, could I have stopped it? And this idea that, like, he had to leave Julia so that he could keep saving the world. And it's like, this is such a, like, melodramatic, like, movie-type thing, but it is good, and it does very much work with what we've seen. And, like, it works with what we saw in 3 before, the first time we even met Julia at the beginning, where he's like lying in bed and it's just like, I want to live this normal life, however I fucking love being a crazy spy man.
I can't stay here because someone who I know in the job needs saving by me, so I will go save this person.
Yeah, but then the kicker here is, and the other one is you, and you are making this complicated, so go away please, essentially. But then she just fully does not. She gets even more involved. Cool that the IMF are planning to do the exact same thing the CIA were going to do. Kind of makes things feel a little bit overly, let's all turn on each other-y. But hey, he comes face to face with Julia. And it was very unexpected for me. Obviously, they've got the picture, there's been the recurring dreams. It's like, all right, maybe there'll be a small cameo. And I'm like, but there's half an hour of movie left or more at this point. 40 minutes, probably. And then she's just standing behind him. And, like, they know that she's probably going to... Or I feel we know she's probably going to be here somewhere. But, like, for him to find her almost immediately, it's like, oh, shit. And the husband is there, and he's having to bullshit this story. And, like, while the husband is talking to Ethan, I really love this moment where Julia looks to her right. And Benji and Luther are just like gawping at her, like, what the fuck? And then
it's two elements of the scene. Is the first one where she goes, oh, this is a friend, he's on holiday, and Ethan goes,
no, I'm working.
I'm working. And then so immediately she goes like, fuck, looks to her right, sees two people who she knows who would only be here if the world was in like dire straits, and random ass woman, all of whom look stressed.
Yes, they're like, oh no.
I think it's such a good wordless letting you realize just how like she gets it immediately and like understands how much shit they're in if her ex-husband and his entire team of cohorts are with them in this part of the world.
Yeah, and then Luther notices that the bomb has been partially, like, they've hidden it in a radio tower. Like, it looks like it's just part of that radio tower. He's like, hang on. And then Ethan, as I said, he like runs off around this corner, and it looks kind of funny just seeing him always running everywhere. But yeah,
I mean, Mission Impossible 3 is the running movie, but this is like a close second.
I feel this has got more running than Mission Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible 3's got the entire sequence where he runs across China.
Yeah. And it also has that one where he runs from the hospital or whatever. But
yeah,
this just, I feel there's so much sustained running in this as well.
There is an awful lot of sustained running in this. Tom Cruise likes running.
Apparently. Is he just on this mission to prove that he's like fit and physically capable and he's like fighting Father Time or something? Because it's like, dude, you've got nothing to prove. You're Tom Cruise. Like, do what you want. And apparently what he wants is to just like hurl himself out of planes and run.
Yeah.
But, you know, go off. I'm not going to kink shame you. So they're working against a 15-minute timer on the bombs. They can only turn the bombs off if they are first turned on. So they have to let them arm them with the detonator and then get the detonator and disarm the bombs, and there are two of them and they don't know where the other one is. So they're working against all of this. They obviously pull it off. Ethan kills Walker, Benji and Ilsa take down Lane, and Luther coordinates them disarming them. But in the meantime, Ethan has to climb up a rope onto a helicopter, and we get a lot of funny little one-liners here where Ilsa's like, how's he going to get up there, or like, what's he doing? And Benji's like, I find it best not to look. That's good stuff. She asks, oh, you can fly a helicopter? And then it's like, lol, no, he absolutely cannot fly a helicopter, but like that was left unsaid. When Julia is helping Luther with the bomb, and he's like giving her the wrong directions or whatever, and she's like, I just wanted to be sure. And then she's like, oh, I like her. And it's like, because she wants to be sure because you're working with a fucking nuclear bomb, I guess. Like,
no, it's because like he goes like, it's in my left hand, and he goes like, your left hand, it contains this thing.
Yeah, it's like the red wire in my left hand is like, oh, I mean the black wire on my right hand.
Yeah.
When Ethan does get into the helicopter, there's a dude that looks like a knockoff Henry. Like it's another dude with a mustache, and they're just awkwardly looking at each other for a second before they fight. That's quite fun.
Better than the helicopter fight in Spectre.
Well, yeah, but what isn't? I still found it a bit overlong and unnecessary. Like this is the point. I'm like getting tired. I'm like, oh, must we? As he like rams his helicopter with his helicopter, and they're shooting and jumping and killing, and I'm just like,
I love this scene because I love when Henry Cavill realizes, or Walker realizes that Ethan is flying the other helicopter. He just kind of does a little sigh. He's just like, God, this fucking guy will not leave me alone. I want to be done with this. I want my nuclear bomb to go off so I can stop the world.
And I like that Ethan is like messing up. And he's like, I missed or whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's right, you prick. And it's like, this feels very not Ethan-like. But I guess once we do one big swear, we can do another one, I suppose.
But then he just reaches behind him, picks up like an artillery rifle.
He's like, all right, yeah. I was like, fuck.
And then just starts shooting the biggest fucking gun with tracer bullets as well, just so we can see how close he comes to hitting him.
They do a bunch of bullshit, and then they fist fight on a fucking cliff with Walker's got like a completely wrecked face, and
yeah, because he got helicopter fuel directly to the face, which just burnt his face up. This scene reminds me an awful lot of the final confrontation in Lost between the Man in Black and Jack.
Yeah.
Except there isn't like. Yeah. Except there isn't like the cut to advert in between Jack doing like a ground pound essentially. I don't know how much you remember the Lost finale. Apparently, it's
a blur. I remember that very, very clearly though.
Did you watch the trailer for this movie before you watched this?
Possibly.
There's a shot in it of Ethan like flying headfirst into a 16-wheeler truck whilst in the helicopter that obviously they cut out, and I was trying to figure out where they would cut it from. I assume it's like when the thing's telling him to pull up and stuff like that, and like apparently the original version was he was supposed to almost crash into a giant truck. Be happy that they cut that out the movie. I feel like you'd be more annoyed if there was more like random bullshit in this scene.
Yeah, they could have cut a lot of this out.
I think there's a lot more to this scene than what was on the film.
In a shorter movie where we're not at like 2 hours 15 and counting, I would not be as impatient about this. And like when I say, and then they fist fight on a cliff and he's got like a burnt face, I say that and I'm like, that sounds cool. And I'm like, no, but you remember, you hated it. It's just, we have worn out my patience at this point. And
that's what makes
stuff
me so
that
sad.
I think should
like,
be good. I'm like,
It feels like you're not liking it because it's bad. You're not liking it because
I do think there are parts
you're
that
not
are bad.
engaged enough.
I do think there are parts of it that are bad. I think some of the dialogue is not good. I think Alec Baldwin briefing Ethan at the beginning is some real bad dialogue.
I mean, he's an exposition machine. In a movie in which they have an exposition machine literally that comes to reveal the plot to you, to then have another human character give you more of an exposition dump like 2 scenes later.
What I was interested in was Lane, Ilsa and Benji. I really like this scene. Like, Lane has been this guy that is just a mwahaha villain, and you forget this dude was like a top MI6 operative, and he fucking messes them up, and it almost hangs Benji. It's wild, but they do take him down. But it's a fun little scene there. And Luther telling Julia, "Go be with your husband. There's nothing more you can do." All of that. Like, they have a nice moment, and she stroke his face or something. But cutting to white and silence. Unclear if they've succeeded, and obviously they've succeeded, but it's like, this is so many movies, they stop it at 1 and you just see the close-up of the countdown on 1 and you're just like, oh, we did it. And this was a different way of handling that trope, and I think it is effective. Of like,
I like the double part of it because it fades to white, or it cuts to white, and obviously like Luther's told Julia to go be with her husband because there's nothing else she can do. They've had the bickering about like, do we cut it at 2 or do we cut it at 1? Because
that's a second we won't get back.
This team is dysfunctional, but great, and I love the chemistry that they all have. But then it's the fact that Ethan's hanging off the cliff. He's still hanging below the cliff, so you think, shit, has he not got to the detonator device?
Imagine if you just see a shot of him hanging off the cliff and then 2 mushroom clouds.
That's the thing, and like the camera pans in such a way that you're not sure if it's the sun or if it's a mushroom cloud.
Before panning into him ending.
And him spitting out the detonator that he's supposed to get out, and it's good.
What a depressing ending that would be.
It would be so depressing.
Every major character except Ethan died. The world is fucked. His ex-wife is dead. Yeah,
all his friends are dead, apart from Brandt. Brandt is still out there.
Brandt is his one. Or, at 1, an arrow flies from off screen and hits the detonator, and then he's there in his Hawkeye costume. instead, his ex-wife survives, and they have their little moment, and I don't know how I feel about her, like, thanking him sincerely for this, like, best life. It's like, you are, like, massively in, like, quasi-witness protection because you were in constant danger, and, like, this man you married is just, like, out there potentially dying every day. Like,
yeah, but she's married a new man who's, like, the most milquetoast of men, even if he is out in Kashmir helping third world countries.
That man enjoys hiking, doesn't he? There's a dude that has gone slacklining or whatever. It's a fun little emotional thing, you know, like her essentially saying that goodbye to him, and then what did Ilsa whisper to her? You know, like, yo, can I hit that?
I guess we find out.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, Ethan has just saved them from recreating When the Wind Blows. Is that maybe the most niche British reference I could have made?
It's up there, for sure.
I think it's all on YouTube. If you want to go spend half an hour being really fucking depressed, go watch When the Wind Blows.
Okay, we'll all go do that. And then our movie ends with, you know, Sloane agrees to give Lane over to MI6, so Ilsa is freed, so she's now definitely an IMF agent, isn't she, in the next movie?
Yeah!
Everybody wins. Although I am a little bit sick of this trope of characters doing a full 180 on Ethan and the IMF and deciding, after being like, you're a fucking liability, and you're rogue, and you're this, and you're that, and you're a dinosaur, and then like, you are so necessary, we are so lucky to have you.
You're the person that thinks about the one person, so I don't have to. Like,
I swear to God, if Angela Bassett is the secretary of the IMF in the next movie and then dies at the end of that movie, and then whoever like was against them in the next movie is the new IMF secretary.
No, we all know the secretary of the IMF is going to be Kittredge in the next movie.
Yeah, because was he actually the secretary in the first one, or was he?
I don't think he was. I think he was just like someone who worked for the IMF.
Are people going to remember who Kittredge is?
I do.
I mean, I do, and you do. We've been doing this podcast. When he tweeted that image out, how many people actually got that? Like,
it got thousands of likes.
I know it did, but these are quite popular now. I don't know.
I think that's the thing, is these movies are now quite popular in a way that it kind of felt like they weren't.
I feel the first one was. But
the first one's like, I think, a cultural touchstone. And I think Mission Impossible 2, whilst being the highest grossing one of them in the US, did some irreparable damage to this franchise. It was like, we made a terrible movie, and then we followed it up with Tom Cruise's mid-2000s career and personal life. And these two things kind of coalesced, you know, like, well, the Mission Impossible franchise is going to die, because how can you outlive...
Let's never forget that in the background of these movies getting kind of better. He is still a crazy Scientologist, man.
I think this is his franchise. This is the one that he has creative control over, and casting, and is sat in the room making creative decisions. And I think it's like, obviously he's gotten more scared as time has gone on, because he's not using different directors enough, and we're now firmly in the point where like he is working with the same 4 or 5 directors. Top Gun Maverick is being made by Joseph Kosinski, who he did Oblivion with, and Chris McQuarrie is obviously directing multiple of these movies, and he likes Doug Liman, and
someone has to.
But he's like working with these same 3 or 4 directors repeatedly, and somehow, even though I don't think anything, like, he's making good movies apart from these. Like, I like Edge of Tomorrow an awful lot. The First Jack Reacher is good. The Mummy's obviously an unmitigated disaster. But he has this touchstone franchise that he keeps getting to come back to. And whilst it means that his career is a lot less interesting than it was 10, 20 years ago, where he's doing weird stuff and working with directors who are interesting, this is, for my money, the best action franchise going on right now. And he has kind of like single-handedly made it into that. And I think it's impressive, especially when you realise the kind of adversity and the weird constraints he seems to be applying to himself by limiting who he's working with to do these.
But Keanu Reeves is a much better person than Tom Cruise.
Keanu Reeves is great. I'm so excited for John Wick 4. I'm excited for Matrix 4. I'm hoping that Bill and Ted 3 is good.
There's no way that's good.
But that's the thing, is it's like it's kind of 2 90s guys who, against all odds, are now the biggest action stars on the planet.
I know, that's
really,
wild.
outside of comic books, both of whom are like in the later years of their career in terms of being able to do this.
And then you also look, Daniel Craig is like almost 50, and Robert Downey Jr. is like, is he almost 60? Like, all these huge names. And
but then you think, like, who have we got coming up? It's like, I'm not going to go line up to see a fucking Jai Courtney movie.
Yes, you will. You will go and see Jai Courtney. And Joel Edgerton.
Hollywood has lost the ability to make leading men that are this interesting, and people who are willing to do the kind of crazy stuff that some of these people do, especially Tom Cruise, that you look at the kind of like up-and-coming crop of talent who do action movies, and none of them are as charismatic or inherently interesting on screen as Cruise or Craig or Reeves or even Damon, who is the least charismatic of the three that we've been covering for this. And you watch them attempt to build it, and the person they pick is fucking Jeremy Renner for two of these franchises.
All this talk about Idris Elba should be the next Bond. It's like, motherfucker, Idris Elba is not a young man.
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth, he's reasonably young, isn't he?
If Michael B. Jordan was British, he would be my pick. It's that kind of person you want to pin an action
But like,
franchise on.
when we're talking about action people, like, Michael B. Jordan is like one of the bigger stars that has come along. Chris Hemsworth is probably, in terms of like manufacturing a star, like I think it's really come together for him in a big, big way, where he's an A-lister now. Although Men in Black, big fail. Although, did that make money?
Probably didn't make money, but no, it's just that you look at like the people who they are trying to make into these stars, and again, it's Jai Courtney, Joel Kinnaman, kind of like wet bread, and like it's basically just look up anyone who they've tried to cast in a Terminator movie in the male roles for the last decade.
Sam Worthington.
Yeah, it's just like, why are we trying to get? But Sam Worthington's going to come back and he's going to have 3 of the biggest or 4 of the biggest movies of all time coming up.
I will be very disappointed in the world if Avatar 2, 3, and 4 are as big as Avatar 1.
I think you're going to be surprised about what James Cameron has pulled out of his arse in the last 11 years.
Fuck James Cameron so hard.
He's good. Makes good movies. James Cameron has only got 1 bad movie to his name.
He made the second best Terminator movie.
He made both the good Terminator movies.
Oh, I guess he did make the first one as well, didn't he? Fuck.
Did make the first one.
Damn it.
You shut your mouth.
Alright. I'm just trying to... Look.
He made the second best Alien.
Yeah, okay.
He made the best Titanic movie.
Look. This is going to be a very long podcast. We can't have an extended talk about James Cameron.
Coming up next on The Real World, Ben and Matt watch all the James Cameron movies, including Piranha 2, a movie which does not exist.
Je refuse. So, for the last time until
November.
Marvelous Journey comes back, / No Time to Die, Villain Watch. August Walker, Henry Cavill.
Great.
Pretty good.
Looks hot.
Yeah, he's hot, but so's Geralt. Like, just go watch The Witcher if you're into this.
Look, I don't know. I was going to say, like, he can spit in my mouth, but I thought that would be a bit too graphic.
Not right now, we can't. Give it a couple of months, and then maybe. Undoubtedly a big physical presence, like a persistent, like, if you think of plot on a film as like a, I don't know, like, I can just imagine, like, little action figures of these two and, like, moving them around, pieces on a board, you know, like, they are on a confrontation to each other, and like he is a persistent threat and a looming presence for Ethan. Even before he is the outright villain, he's like the rival, you know, like they're both on the same side, but you distrust the CIA because they're the CIA, you know. All of that is good. Like, he is a big physical presence. Like, it's cool seeing him get to do a role like this. I just was like, so he's both dumb and bad at fighting? Okay, cool. But we've been sort of starved for like really, really good henchman-style villains, like physical ones.
Who do you think is the main villain of this movie? Do you think it's Walker or do you think it's Lane?
Well, that's the weird thing. Yeah, they do kind of... We were talking about how like they can't decide if it's the asset or Dewey in Jason Bourne. And to an extent it feels like that, because Lane is so set up to be Ethan's nemesis, and then Ethan is like 100 miles away, well, not 100, but you know, miles away when Lane is taken down, and he's off chasing Walker, who has like duped him and is like the one that is waving Julia in his face. But he's like Lane's disciple, or he is a disciple of Lane, isn't he? Like that was.
I think that's the thing is, like, I think Walker is the main villain of this movie, and Walker's good. The other thing I really like is that even though Lane is ostensibly the person who's setting up Ethan to fail, and this is revenge on his part, and the only reason Ethan is going after Walker is because they just dislike each other, and they niggle at each other, and they've got good chemistry with each other, is that they've managed to set up chemistry, or like they've managed to set up a situation where both Ilsa and Benji have a stake in taking down Lane. Because
he took Benji hostage, and she was undercover in his operation, and yeah.
And I think that's what makes it really work, is that they've got this villain who ostensibly, like, the villain is going after Ethan, but they can remove Ethan from the table and
still have someone have a personal stake in it.
I just really like that.
Yeah, I do like when you have separate, like, this is this person's final encounter, like, this is their personal final boss type. I do like that.
Because, like, you think about it, and, like, think about how badly Quantum of Solace fucked that up.
Yes.
With like Olga Kurylenko and like, oh, she's trying to take down the general who who sexually abused her and all these different things. It's just like, I don't care.
Or like
this
Ghost Protocol where Paula Patton kicks her nemesis out a window and then ceases her, like, this is her plot terminus. But we've got
the main issue of Ghost Protocol being like the third act of the movie kind of pivots hard into, we were setting these other characters up to have an interesting plot line, but now Ethan needs to be the hero because he's going to remain the lead of this franchise.
I do like that Sean Harris was adamant he wanted to die in his first appearance, and he's managed to. They brought him back, and he's still not dead. So
still not dead.
They could potentially trot him out a third and even fourth time if they needed to. But we'll see what happens there. Again, the Apostles, what happened there? Like I feel that was like a unrealized. Or
I think they're just in the background, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear that like the plot of 7 and 8 is about rounding up the last of these Apostles.
I guess just you say something like the Apostles, and I envision like a wise man's committee, like the inner council, the inner sanctum, the big 12 disciples of Solomon Lane or whatever. But like,
I mean, for all we know, maybe that was the original plan, and then they watched Spectre and were just like, no, we can't do this.
You can if you make it good. You have not John Lark. We talked about him, a stuntman, like kind of owns everyone. He's very cool. White Widow and her brother, like White Widow's kind of a villain. It's a very villainous performance from Kirby, but she's also really fun, and she's coming back, and she's kind of set up to be a chaotic good type character, and I like her a lot. The brother, big meh. But, you know,
yeah, like
we've got like 8 characters here. I can forgive some villains being bad. How did Tom survive? The halo jumps, the broken ankle, the motorcycle chase, like I think his harness broke, so he was like, how about I just do this without a harness, and just they went on with it. The helicopter piloting, most of it is him as well, and he had to learn in a short period of time. Like, I don't know if he was like in actual danger of death to the degree he was in like Mission Impossible 2, but like this is a crazy amount of stuff, and this is the big like, oh, he actually really hurt himself for the first time.
Yeah, like the kind of like the gloves are off. This is like, maybe we should end this franchise before the lead actor dies. like before the insurance for these movies gets impossible to pay. I do enjoy, obviously, like Mission Impossible 2 where he's like free climbing and he like did that, and then this movie ends with him free climbing up the mountain as well.
Yeah, true. No knife being driven into his eye though. Ugh. Yeah, Tom, please seek help for your obvious desire to die. Female agency, again, as I said, no real complaints, I don't think. Ilsa is back. She's still very cool. She gets to be the one to take down Lane.
Like, the main issue is like she got pregnant and so maybe doesn't get to do quite as much actiony stuff as she did in the last movie.
Yeah, I assume that's why she goes from like doing like she's a sniper on a bridge to she's just walking around a lot of corridors, and like maybe that's why she's wearing a suit because it's less...
like she's wearing the suit, she's wearing the biker leathers, and obviously like wearing the mask, so it's like when they hit her with the car you can't see that it's not her. And
White Widow, very, very cool. A nice little romantic tension with Ethan where she's like, you're fun. I meet a lot of dangerous people and you're fun.
But then the kiss is terrible.
Yeah, well, no one can kiss Tom Cruise. But
that's the thing. Tom Cruise has no chemistry with any woman in the world. If romantic chemistry with any woman in the world. I
like that she is still ostensibly going to be around because Sloane's final like briefing is like, you know, with a friend or whatever. Sloane herself, like, you know, Angela Bassett's a badass. She should be in more things.
She can do this in her sleep.
Oh, yeah.
This kind of role.
Is that role that we've talked about where, similar with Joan Allen, her job is to be, I don't want to use gendered language, you know, like, this isn't me saying it, it's like, she is the bitch that's come in to ruin all the boys' fun, kind of thing. But she does it really well, and, like, I don't think that she is strung up by that. Like, it's a cool character. I
think the other thing is, like, all of her decisions make sense with the information that she's given. One of the big issues when they do these kind of characters is, like, when you think about TV shows with anti-hero men and all the rest of it, and the wives are these people who are, like, there to ruin the fun and there to put a wrench in the work. Yeah. But like what they're doing makes sense. The decisions they're making is just the fact that the audience has more information than the characters in the show, that like it feels like they're getting in the way of the plot progression. But again, it works here where she is, everything she's given makes sense. All her decisions make sense. Her wanting to just go like, fuck it, I can't be bothered to decide who's good and bad with IMF. Just bring them all to fucking Washington and we'll sort it out here. I don't care.
And Julia's back. A big thing for her, like being not just a cameo of like, oh, sorry, we didn't tie up your story properly, or we couldn't be bothered to bring you back. Like, here is an actually like heavy thing for her to tackle of like being confronted with this man out of nowhere, and also possibly the world's about to end, you know, all that stuff. All good. And, like, that's 4 big female characters, and not one of them is being, like, sexualized or, like, stripping off or an extreme close-up or anything like that. So, well done. We've done it. 15 episodes in. I don't think I have a complaint.
Yeah. I also just want to say to Michelle Monaghan, I welled up during their scene between Ethan and Julia, which is impressive, as, again, Tom Cruise has no romantic chemistry with any woman.
No.
Michelle Monaghan is the closest they've come to that, and they managed to successfully make me well up during their conversations in Kashmir. So, good job, movie. The first one of these, apart from Casino Royale, make me well up.
Oh. Well, there you go then. A fitting ending, because No Time to Die is penciled in as coming out in November now. Hopefully.
Who knows if the world will still exist?
Well, there's that. So I guess we'll try and do that when it comes out, because there will be movies will return in, like, July, so that it plays out towards the end of the year again. So I don't know if we will have a week where we have both, or we build in a week off so that we can slot in No Time to Die. We will figure that out for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's 26 weeks in the back half of the year, and we're only going to be doing 25 episodes. So there is a week leeway.
Yes.
That can slot into.
There you go. But between now and then, our next podcast project is Nothing Ever Ends, wherein we will cover the Watchmen TV show. Ben has already given thoughts on it with Jerome for the Superhero Pantheon Christmas special. You can go listen to those thoughts. I haven't, obviously, because I have not seen the show, and I have remained almost, I think, entirely spoiler-free. I know there's a dildo.
Yes.
And I know there's squids. That's about it.
Which is the trailer.
Exactly. Like, I've seen the trailers, but I've managed to remain spoiler-free, which I didn't think I would manage to do. But as of the second we stop recording this, I can go get ready and start watching Watchmen, so that'll be fun. Our first episode, we are going to delve into the book and sort of very briefly ancillary media and, like, the legacy of Watchmen. And then we will get rolling with 2 episodes per episode, and then we'll do just 1 for the finale and all that good stuff. But it will be similarly formatted to Countdown to Destruction, which is appropriate, as these are both Damon Lindelof joints, wherein I will only have seen what we're covering in each episode, and Ben has seen it all, so he gets to be like, just you wait, while I'm like, oh, maybe this is going to happen, and I'm always wrong. So that will be here soon. I don't know if it will be next week when you hear this, but it will be very soon. So hopefully there's a world, and hopefully
Matt
Nothing Ever Ends is not proven wrong immediately. But
yeah, Matt needs to go read something.
Yes, I have to go read Watchmen.
I'm going to go read all the ancillary material, so that can be my little corner of the podcast where I go a little bit insane.
My alarm has gone off to tell me to upload this week's podcasts onto entertherealworld.com, so I'm going to do that, and you should all go listen to them. But this has been Secret Agent Men. It's not quite the end, but it's basically the end for now, so...
I mean, it's quite a fitting end. I mean, like, what have we learnt from this franchise other than inconvenient delays?
And they'll eventually get it right with women. Thank you, Ben, for these 15 episodes, and for the last time, as we've always said since episode 1, this podcast will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Thank you, Ben. Goodbye.
Bye.
Secret Agent Man.